How ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that was quite an atmosphere that was developed then, you know.
My name is Dept. And I'm a member of the Committee to Stop FBI Repression. On September 24th, there were unspeakable actions that took place in this state and other states where the FBI raided and subpoenaed numerous individuals, and since that date, the FBI repression and investigation has expanded so that now there is a total of 23 that have been subpoenaed before a grand jury.
My name is Jess Sundin, Jess-Sundin, and I'm a member of the Anti-War Committee. We are here today to express outrage that our democratic rights have been violated by a government operation of spying, infiltration, and disruption of our anti-war movement, which was carried out over the course of at least 2.5 years. In April of 2008, a law enforcement officer, Karen Sullivan, joined the Anti-War Committee. In 2008, at that time, we were involved in organizing the anti-war marches on the first and last days of the Republican National Convention. That time there was a massive security operation here, which included the infiltration of the RNC Welcoming Committee. We now have it confirmed that in this same period, we too became the subject of a government investigation. The difference is, our spy made herself comfortable and decided to stay a while, posing as a fellow anti-war activist and pretending to befriend us. For 2.5 years, Officer Sullivan participated, sometimes even serving as chairperson, in weekly anti-war committee meetings here in this very room, where everyone present has a say in the decisions that the committee makes. Officer Sullivan had a key to this office, which was later used by the FBI on September 24th to enter the office, search it, seize our computers, financial records, and other materials. For the last year or so, she has assisted with the bookkeeping for the Anti-War Committee and had unimpeded access to our financial records. On several occasions, Officer Sullivan gave public speeches on behalf of the Anti-War Committee, including on Colombia and Palestine. Some of these speeches, I'm sorry to say, can still be found on our website. My point here is that Officer Sullivan had full access to all the work of this committee, to our membership lists, our finances, our decision-making, and anything else she wanted to know about us. And even after 2.5 years of this full access, there are no charges against anyone. Instead, lacking evidence to charge anyone, 24 people are being dragged through an intimidating grand jury process. If there were truly criminal activity happening here, Agent Sullivan would have known all about it. The only crimes committed here were the abuses of our rights carried out by Karen Sullivan herself. Unfortunately, Officer Sullivan took a special interest in the Anti-War Committee's coalition work. She represented our committee at meetings of the Iraq Peace Action Coalition and the Coalition for Palestinian Rights. She also represented us in national venues, the Latin America Solidarity Coalition, the School of the Americas Watch protests, and at the U.S. Social Forum in Detroit last summer. About a year ago, she also joined Freedom Road Socialist Organization, which is talked about in by the government in this case, in a manner reminiscent of McCarthy-era political witch hunts. The government has no right to spy on the Anti-War Committee or the many organizations we've worked with. Officer Sullivan's actions reflect only the latest example of FBI surveillance of progressive movements in this country. These kinds of actions were described in detail in the October 2010 Inspector General report, which documents efforts to spy on peace movement groups just like the Anti-War Committee. Officer Sullivan went beyond simply surveilling us to become an active participant in the work of the Anti-War Committee to the point of disrupting it. When I speak about disruption, I am referring to an August 2009 Solidarity delegation to Palestine. This delegation was a fact-finding mission where participants were to witness the conditions for Palestinians living under U.S.-backed occupation and to express their solidarity, our solidarity, in a person-to-person way. Officer Sullivan made public her plans to join this delegation. She helped to promote it in the community and to fundraise for it right here in Minneapolis. At the same time, she was secretly working to sabotage the trip entirely. Through her work, reports were passed on to Israeli authorities, who then barred entry to the 2 Minneapolis women traveling with Karen Sullivan. Her action on behalf of the U.S. government deprived these women of their right to travel, association, and dissent. The government was wrong to disrupt our important and legal work against U.S. aid to Israel. In order to help fund the travel of these 3 women from Minneapolis, including Officer Sullivan herself, and to send a token symbol of solidarity to the Palestinian people, a series of fundraisers were organized. We were very open about our work to support the Union of Palestinian Women's Committees, which is an NGO registered with the Palestinian Authority and which is not illegal under Israeli or international law. The Union of Palestinian Women's Committees works for women's equality. Their activities include support for women refugees and women political prisoners, and providing basic social services for women, including several child care centers. That everything we thought we knew about Karen Sullivan was a lie. She was never a friend or a person of conscience working to help us build peace and justice. Instead, she was a law enforcement officer working to surveil us, our friends, and our organizations. She was working to disrupt our political organizing. This is more than a story of personal betrayal, but one of political repression. It sickens me that on the word of this liar, the government came into our homes, seized our property, and launched a grand jury witch hunt that has snared not only those that had the misfortune of knowing Karen Sullivan, but now so many other good people from here to Chicago and across the country. On the word of this liar, the FBI has questioned our colleagues across the country, from North Carolina, Wisconsin, Arizona, California, and who knows where else. Rather than crumble under this pressure, our movement is responding with strength and unity. We will stand together behind every woman and man that Patrick Fitzgerald tries to haul before the grand jury.
Joe Callahan, C-A-L-L-A-H-A-N, speaking on behalf of the Iraq Peace Action Coalition, which is a coalition of numerous groups in the Twin Cities, which organizes demonstrations, exercising the First Amendment rights of free speech and freedom of assembly of the U.S. people to protest wars and occupations carried out by the U.S. government. War is an issue of transcendent importance, a life and death issue for the people in the United States and throughout the world. The U.S. wars and occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan have cost the lives of over 5,000 U.S. soldiers and many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of lives of Iraqis and Afghans. Spying is an illegal violation of the rights of the people and has a chilling effect on the exercising of constitutional rights. So IPAC joins with others in demanding an immediate end to government spying. We demand immediate identification and removal of all agents from all peace groups now and in the future as well. Members of the Iraq Peace Action Coalition stand in solidarity together with the activists here in Minneapolis, Chicago, and other places who've been raided and subpoenaed in this so-called grand jury investigation. And we will stand together with them, come what may, until the end of this witch hunt.
What we learned today is not only extremely creepy, and it insults, every advocacy group, even more so than the anti-war groups. But it's also alarming to our democracy, and actually, I will, at a third level, say it's counterproductive to law enforcement as a former FBI agent and a legal counsel who actually was in charge for 13 years of teaching the various civil liberties, the Bill of Rights, and most notably the First Amendment. The First Amendment, if you can believe this, was mandated by the FBI during my career to come first. Actually now, all the FBI need do when they do send an infiltrator into a group is they have to deny, that's the standard now, they have to deny that they are targeting the group solely based on its First Amendment rights. Okay, that's pretty easy. You know, any legal commentator will tell you that denying that you're targeting a group solely based on their First Amendment rights is not a very high hurdle. In fact, it's no hurdle. There is one other person in Washington, D.C. He's an official. He's a pretty high-level official. He's the Inspector General of the Dept.of Justice, Glenn Fine. And he has actually found now repeated instances, not just here in this case, but he's found the Thomas Merton Center in Pennsylvania, environmental groups, Greenpeace, all of these groups now have government spies that are insinuated into the groups. Code Pink organized event, they were actually Code Pink at the time in the early summer of 2008. They were planning to make these giant pink puppets, these giant puppets that you see at the May Day parade. And they had a meeting for this, about 30-some people came, again, small room, and I was sitting next to Karen Sullivan. And I think I even handed her our card, and I said, well, we're doing this bannering on 35W. It's very legal. You can have a nice sign that says support the troops and the war, and it's perfectly legal. And I invited her to come to help us with our bannering, and she actually came then 4 or 5 times, and then I thought, well, that's odd, she never showed up again.